We're live.
All right. This is the Senate Education Committee on March 10th. A little after 1:15. We're going to today work on 3 separate pieces of legislation. We're going to start with 214, S214, an activating provision of kindergarten education in geographically isolated school districts. And you have, it's posted, but you also have in your files some language proposed by the agency, and the Department for Children and Services. And I think we're going to hear first from Janet or Emily. I'm not sure which way you want to do it.
I can start. Yeah.
Okay.
So hi everyone.
As you do, well, this is here anyway, so actually forget that. Just go ahead.
Okay. So hi everyone. I'm Janet McLaughlin, Deputy Commissioner within the Department for Children and Families that oversees the Child Development Division that co-administers Universal Pre-Kindergarten along with the Agency of Education. And we share the goal of making sure that all children have access to pre-kindergarten education. And I've been glad to partner with you on figuring out a solution for children in Essex County and specifically in the NEK Choice School District. Last week, I had a chance to travel to Essex County and spend time with Sharon Ellingwood here, as well as Patty Brown, who are both 2 NEK Choice School District board members. And we got a chance to really, talk about what the need is to be able to see, get a real sense of the geography and how that drives, what family needs and choices are there. And also got a chance to meet with some school administrators in New Hampshire as we think about how this would play out in terms of Vermont children who are likely to go to kindergarten in New Hampshire being able to access their pre-kindergarten in New Hampshire. So I know that there was good work done on proposed language for S214. The agency, the department are recommending a different approach, which we talked about the last time we were in. And so through the discussions that I've had with the NEK Choice School District, and then also the conversation between the agency and department, that still is our recommendation to do this sort of an alternative approach to what was in S214. But we did make a few adjustments to what we had put forward to you all week before last. And so those adjustments included just being very clear that this is about the NEK Choice School District and the children enrolled in that school district having access, even though it's part of the larger Essex North Supervisory Union. There is a public school operated pre-K program up in Canaan. And so the Canaan School District wasn't really needing the New Hampshire option. And so wanted to focus on the NEK Choice School District. Adjusted the language before. It said that this was a public school in New Hampshire located in a school district on the border. We switched it to say within 25 miles of the border, which again is what local community members told us was going to be more in line with the access patterns that families have. And then at the final sentence where we talked about the waiver, and we did spend, a time talking about this, we are thinking is that we would keep the idea of applying for a waiver in there. So, because we really do want to maintain visibility into what is being offered in New Hampshire and how it is the same or different than what is being offered in Vermont. But the intention is for it to be a very, a simple, not lengthy process, but more like a documentation of what the alternative standard is. We also think that this is important because based on our conversations with the currently the assistant superintendent, soon to be the superintendent of the Lancaster School District, and they're facing the same, they're facing a lot of the same challenges that we have in Vermont in terms of thinking about school consolidation, thinking about what are the numbers you need to be able to open a new classroom, how are you, how you're using your buildings well. And through those conversations, it felt like that there may also be elements of the pre-K program related to hours or costs that right now school districts in Vermont make choices about that that we probably do need the NEK school district to be able to have a negotiation with, for example, the Lancaster School District about exactly what that looks like. And so it might not look exactly like the statewide tuition rate and the way we have contracts right now. So again, putting it in there as a waiver, we're keeping the waiver provision in there. And then we did adjust it so that it says at the end where it talks about it being impractical for, and before it just said it was impractical for the New Hampshire program. And now it says any rule provision that's impractical for the NEK Choice School District or the New Hampshire program. So again, we're trying to create the conditions that will actually allow the NEK Choice School District to, develop, to be able to make the partnerships it needs to make across the river so that kids can actually access the programs. So that's my summary of where we've landed. Happy to answer questions, or if Emily wants to add anything.
Why don't we go through anything like Emily and then Sharon, and then we'll ask all three of you be there. We can then ask some questions if we have any. Emily, do you have anything to add?
I just, I noticed that we did not provide markup to you of our language from week before last till today. So if I pulled up the markup that Janet and I shared while we were hashing the final language out, did anyone need me to go back through in more detail of the comparison of the language we showed you week before last versus what you have in front of you today? It's those issues that Janet outlined exactly.
I would say no. I think this language that you've got in front of us is clear. I think, I just wanted to make sure in the end, and Sharon, that you can help us with this, that it's practical and easy for the parents. And I want to know, I think we just want to make sure it feels like you did what we wanted, by the way. But I want to make sure this just when the intent was for this to be really small for parents. I just want to make sure we've maintained that. So Sharon, you go ahead as the school board member.
Thank you. Last time we met, I did not read testimony, and today I'm going to take you up on that opportunity. So I'm just going to read a very brief testimony. For the record, my name is Sharon Ellingwood. I support the amendment to Vermont's universal pre-K law. I would like to thank Senator Kesha Hinsdale, the bill's sponsor, along with the legislators, agencies, and partners who collaborated to bring forward this thoughtful solution. On March 4th, state agency members managed to crisscross nearly the whole county for Essex County for a day, and the long miles between the stops told the story better than I ever could. Special thanks to Deputy Commissioner Janet McLaughlin and Deputy Secretary Jill Briggs-Campbell for joining us. This amendment is a practical and efficient way to create access for students in areas of the NEK Choice School District. When early milestones are not met for these children, the children and their families suffer. School boards cannot effectively budget or plan, and elderly residents and taxpayers ultimately bear the cost when expensive late interventions drive up ed spending and any per pupil costs. Where local capacity does not exist, such as schools, school choice is not a luxury. It does not depopulate Vermont schools in this fix. It ensures that some Vermont children can still access an education. So thank you for your attention and your work on behalf of the lowest population density towns in Essex County. This amendment thoughtfully addresses the circumstances of districts like ours and reflects a broad understanding of the geographic realities. Thank you. I support this. I'm so fortunate to work with great partners. Thank you.
Thank you. We asked this question the last time, but just to ask it again to make sure. Are we sure we're not leaving any kids out when we limit this just to NEK Choice
I'm not sure because two schools were voted to close on town meeting day, right? They are on the western side of the state.
Okay.
I heard that, and then I thought about
Okay,
Sandgate.
that one, that's a different, issue. I know about that one.
So
I was thinking more
I'm
in
not
the-
willing to say I'm sure. I'm not willing to say I'm sure. I am in support of any student and, frontier town like we have. Absolutely.
Yes.
I'm sorry if I missed this. I tried to see if Senator Kashim could fill me in. There are a sufficient number of public schools on the New Hampshire side that would take Vermont students, because most of our students in Vermont pre-K, I would say a preponderance, are using private pre-K programs.
Is that question posed to me, Senator?
I think Janet might know
Janet,
best. Should know that answer. I guess, I mean, not
Yeah.
necessarily about New Hampshire, but most Vermont students are using a private
Mhm.
pre-K to fulfill their 40 hours.
Yeah, so that's correct. So it's really about 50-50. It's just slightly over. So it's pretty evenly mixed here. But I guess there's two factors that drove us to focus on the public schools specifically. So one is that New Hampshire doesn't have like a statewide pre-kindergarten program, and there's no and the local school districts that this could be a part of, they don't contract with community-based programs for publicly funded pre-K right now. So there wasn't like a standard in New Hampshire to like hang on to for pre-kindergarten education, which would make it, kind of a more difficult thing to try to qualify those programs. And secondly, for several of the programs schools that do serve pre-K kids, those are, or like private or independent schools, right? Those are schools that now can no longer accept those K kids. And so it was feeling odd to have just said your child can't go to that school for K, but now we're going to open up access for pre-K. We felt like that was going to open up kind of a different can of worms. And so again, in talking with at least, the school board members that we were talking with, they felt like starting with the public schools was the way to go, and that there might only be one or two community-based programs that could potentially fit, but we weren't even sure, and that was going to be a bigger lift. So that's why we decided that this was the right place to start.
But you have some level of confidence that the small number of kids who are eligible should be able to navigate and find a public program pretty easily.
Okay, I'll go with this. As easily as their Vermont-based counterparts.
Okay.
Right? So we know it's not a perfect system as it is right now in Vermont either. So I don't know that it's opening up access. It's allowing those partnerships. It's creating the conditions for success in New Hampshire. But there still would be work to develop some of those partnerships that, and again, a lot of them are building from existing relationships for older students. So that's a good place to start from.
People generally okay with this as a policies. So Beth, if you can jump in.
Hello,
Hi.
Beth St. James, Office of Legislative Counsel.
The initial bill was a few pages.
Mm-hmm.
This is a paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
What else do we need to do?
From a drafting perspective,
Yeah.
you would just ask me to draft a committee amendment.
Just and this language in and of itself is sufficient.
You tell me.
Well,
Whether it's sufficient for your policy objectives is a question for the committee. If if what you all have been talking about is where you want to go, then yes. And you would just ask me to draft a committee amendment.
Okay, well, are we ready for consent? Make sense to everybody? Okay, then that is the request.
Great.
Okay. So with that, then I think thanks for the work on this. And I don't know who organized that day in Essex, but good work.
It was a
It was
group
the
effort.
governor's capital for a day event.
The governor had
Capital
something to
for
do with
day.
it. He
Okay.
started it.
All
Let's
right.
give him
Right.
credit.
Okay,
Sure.
you took advantage of it to get, okay, got it. Well, good. I think we're ready to look at a draft then when we can. Maybe tomorrow, is that possible? Yep. Tomorrow.
Yes.
So we'll put this on tomorrow.
Well, I'm sorry. I will certainly have a draft for you tomorrow. I don't know that I am available tomorrow afternoon. So I will get you the draft and then we can schedule accordingly.
Okay, if we can squeeze you in, we will put it down for a possible vote. If we have to wait till Thursday, we'll wait till Thursday. Okay. Good. I think, unless anybody has anything else. Thanks, everybody. And we'll move on then to the second part of the meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon,
Yeah,
Janet.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
And I'm getting hard copies, okay. So hang on, everybody, just for a couple of minutes. We're live still, but we're waiting for hard copies. So this is not an amendment. It's like it's a committee bill, but we'll see how we end up approaching the vehicle part. So Beth, if you wanted to come back in. All right. So this is the language or the beginnings of language to effectuate the map. And the language that passed out a week or so ago. And you should recall that the basic notion is to have these 11 SUs shown on the map. And within the SUs, for districts to consolidate to the point that we reduce the number of districts by half within the SUs. And then the big gray area is all SDs, and the goal is to have those SDs also consolidate by something like 50%, so that we overall go from 119 districts to something less than half, and we go from 52 SUs down to something like 20, half of that as well. So that was the basic intent. We also, just for people watching, also posted today, you'll have a copy of this, just listing the towns that are in each of those SUs. So, so that if people look at it and go, I'm saying this to anybody who's watching this on the video, and go, this town should be over here, let us know if we'll be getting together a little specific. We may be adjustment for Reedsboro and Stamford. But I know there's a couple of others, and so we have to. So but now they're listed, making it easy for people to do that. But so, but Beth has prepared, at my request, the draft to get us started on this. And, so Beth, you wanted to do start us on a walkthrough, except for a question for
Question.
Senator Williams.
I did the math, on the back, what's not included on here? These are just SUs. Cause the math is like 36,000, so you're missing the block.
Yeah, listen, yes,
The gray area.
the gray area, yes.
Another question for you. Has VFO run the numbers on this yet? To see if we have a savings?
No, this is just reducing the,
Are you gonna ask them?
probably can't do that until, let's talk about that later. Yeah, that's
No worries,
really,
no worries, no worries.
that's very complicated. So, okay. So again, first draft, just to get the discussion started here. And Beth, you're on.
Great, thank you. Beth St. James, Office of Legislative Counsel. I'm not going to go, in the interest of time, I'm not going to go line by line unless it's really the only way to discuss a concept. So if you'd like me to go back over something in more detail or speed up, please just give me direction. So the first section is a set of goals, or, another thing we could call this is legislative intent or legislative priorities, or purpose. And this language is just taken from one of the original documents that Senator Bongart shared with the map. I'll let that language speak for itself in the interest of time. And again, please, if you want me to focus on something, just ask. The first big piece of substantive law is related to supervisory unions. So I think the reader assistance headings in this draft are really helpful. So now we're going to be talking about supervisory unions. We have so section 2 is a redesignation of just moving one small section within the supervisory union chapter to a different subchapter to free up some available statutes. So not a substantive change, just a redesignation. Section 3 is a huge substantive change. And what section 3 will do, and it hasn't done that yet because you all haven't decided on the boundaries of those supervisory unions, is it creates the boundaries of supervisory unions in state law. So currently supervisory unions are created by the State Board of Education. And so, as I'm talking about this, there's actually a conforming amendment that I should add to the next draft related to the state board's authority to do that. But the goal with this language would be that supervisory unions are now created by the state. And so it will, once you all decide on your supervisory union boundaries, we would say the state is divided into the supervisory unions of, and we would name them. And then on page 2, you would just list the name of the supervisory union and their member school districts, and then the municipalities within each of those member school districts. Okay to keep going?
Yes.
Okay. So
Can I-
section,
Yes, the first question.
Sorry.
First,
Does this look similar at all to Act 46, or it wouldn't?
does what look similar to Act 46?
I guess I'm looking through the language of I'm in section 4. I'm in section 4. So I guess if as we get to section 4, what I'm looking at is how they propose to form or dissolve and things like that, and how governance.
Yep. So, as I said, the section headings, the reader assistance headings, so for example, on page 1, line 13, are really helpful. We're only talking about supervisory unions thus far. There's going to be a whole separate section and reader assistance heading with different sections underneath it that addresses school districts. And that does look very similar to Act 46.
Okay.
But for supervisory unions, my answer would be no, it looks nothing like Act 46 because this is an act of the legislature. You're putting the boundaries into state law.
Okay.
So section 4 on page 2 is current law. You can see what's struck through there, or we're going to keep the title the same, Organization and Adjustment of Supervisory Unions. But now, and I'm just going to summarize this very generally, and if you choose to take this language up and if it moves, then we'll want to go back in with a fine-tooth comb and make sure that everything is, all of our T's are crossed and all our I's dotted. But again, for the sake of time today, I'm just going to kind of go broad concepts. Because you are putting supervisory union boundaries in state law, it would take an act of the legislature to change those boundaries.
If I can interrupt here, question for the chair, what's the vehicle for this? And what's the timing for this?
We do not need to make crossover. Can figure out the vehicle.
So this is really more of a committee conversation about goals and alignment. and what-
It's as if this were a committee bill.
Okay, I just wanted to see what that time.
Yeah. Yeah, Senator.
Quick question on a sentence that you just said that, so if, was it the unions you were referring to that would require an act of law to change their boundaries?
Correct, the
And-
supervisory unions.
And is that currently, that's currently a requirement, right? It's not.
No, supervisory union boundaries are the responsibility of the State Board of Education.
So I guess just a comment, a general concern, we talked a lot about voluntary mergers as well, and I wouldn't want to take that off the table if down the road two unions think that it's a good idea to form a BOCES or to merge or to, I guess actually it wouldn't prohibit BOCES, but if they wanted to merge themselves in the future, I don't know if we want to take that off the table.
Well, they would have to, they can, just like they can, but they have to come to the legislature and get approved. Which is
Like a town trucker.
yeah.
Exactly.
That's not a huge, it's a deal, but it's not very doable. They'd be able to do the BOCES, by the way.
Yeah,
As you
right.
suggested. Yeah.
So the best comparison to the language in section 4, it's not exactly on point, but it is what I used as a guide, is the charter change request process. And so broad strokes, again, in the interest of time, in order for a supervisory union boundary to be changed, because it's state law, you all would have the ability to change it sua sponte, right? Like if, in a committee bill or, in the normal legislative process. But if there is a desire from the community, from the field to change those boundaries, right now there's a process in state law for requesting that change from the State Board of Education. Section 4 would require a member school district of a supervisory union, either through a vote of the school district board or a petition of 5% of the voters of the school district to request a vote on a supervisory union boundary adjustment proposal. So either the school board itself would be putting it forward to a vote, or there could be a petition of the voters, 5% of the voters, who would trigger that proposal to go forward to a vote. There's on page 3, there's provisions about public hearings having to be held and when they have to be held. There's provisions about posting public information related to the boundary adjustment proposal. And then the next step would be a vote of the electorate of the member school district who is interested in seeing a boundary adjustment. If that vote is positive, then the boards of the 2 supervisory unions involved, so the supervisory union that the school district is currently a member of and the supervisory union of the the board of the supervisory union the school district wants to join, the boards themselves would hold advisory votes. And all of that information, the positive vote and the boundary proposal request from the school district, and then the results of the advisory votes of the two affected supervisory union boards would go to the legislature, and that's what they would act on. If the electorate of the school district votes no on the boundary adjustment proposal, then it stops. The process stops, and you would have to reinitiate the whole thing from scratch in order to advance any boundary adjustment proposal. That's a summary of Section 4.
So it's also kind of like an opt-out in a way. Would that be fair to say? Like the law would be putting them in a supervisory union, and they are having to react to that affirmative action if they want to have the boundary changed or be removed or something.
Yes, but they even it would still take an act of the General Assembly, so you could disagree with what they want.
Okay.
This is why I'm trying to get people in.
Yeah.
And tell us if they have one.
Right. No, I
Tell us now. Yeah.
it's a good and important
Yes.
detail. It's an important detail.
And then assuming that the process I just very briefly summarized happened, and then the legislative process played out, and then there was a bill that became law, whether that was the governor signed it, the governor let it become law without the governor's signature, or there was a veto and an override, whatever combination there is. Once it became law, those boundaries would be adjusted. But unless there was a law that was fully enacted, those boundaries could not be adjusted. So that brings us to page 9 in section 5. And this is all session law transitioning to new supervisory unions. So I do think going closer to line by line is helpful here. So I'm on page 9, line 2, section 5. Within 30 days following the passage of this act, the secretary is required to call a separate meeting for each supervisory union of the school districts of the members of the school directors of the member school districts within each supervisory union. The number of directors shall be determined, and directors are elected at that first meeting. And then within 30 days thereafter, the secretary calls another meeting, and the board elects a chair and the other necessary officers to serve as a transition board until the operational date on July 1, 2027. Or the first election of the annual officers. All of that, so lines 2.
Okay. Hold on, Beth.
Yeah, before you move on, thank you, Beth.
Mhm.
Question more for the charts. I think you're the architect of much of this. Okay, so that first paragraph, page 9, sentence 2 through whatever 5. Which boards are we talking about? Pre-existing boards, the future boards. Can you kind of just give us an idea of what transpired?
Well, partially, Beth is the expert on this, but within 30 days, the secretary calls a meeting, and it would include the directors of all of the districts within the SU.
The new SU.
The existing,
Within the new SU. This is forming the new one.
but the
the older-
existing members get called.
Of the existing members of the district, Beth, all the districts.
Yes, so the way this is written, the key phrase here is 30 days within passage of this act. So we haven't gotten there yet, but the next reader assistance heading is about voluntary school district mergers, and that's going to take years. So the way this is written, the way I have written it, and what I believe it would work, is within 30 days of July 1, 2026, your new supervisory union boundaries are going to be effective on July 1, 2026. So within 30 days of July 1, 2026, the Secretary of Education has to call a meeting in each of those supervisory unions to get a transition board up and running. And so it would be the school districts that are in existence on whatever that date is.
So it's the current school district board members meeting from a geographic location outlined by the new supervisory union.
Correct.
Okay, that's all.
Correct.
Just trying to get some.
And so the language in lines 2 through 8 is largely, if not totally, taken directly from current law. This is the language in current law for when there is a new supervisory union created by the state board. So that process is current process for when a new supervisory union is formed. I'm not creating anything new here. So subsection B talks about the roles and authority during the transition. Oh, actually, let's talk about line 9. The operational date of the new supervisory unions shall be July 1, 2027. So the boundaries are going to be effective July 1, 2026, but those new supervisory unions won't have hired anyone. They won't have any of their new policies yet, right? They need a transition period, so they won't be operational until July 1, 2027. So that year between July 1, 2026 and July 1, 2027 would be a transition year. And so the roles and authority during the transitional period would be as follows under subsection B on page 9. So in subdivision 1, we're clarifying that the supervisory unions in existence, and that should be June 30th, 2026. I'll change that for the next draft. The supervisory unions in existence on June 30th, 2026 shall continue to provide administrative planning and educational services for their member school districts until those new SUs formed by this act are operational. The transition board is required to develop bylaws for the new supervisory union that address how the expenses of the SU, including those associated with central office and those associated with the provision of special education services, shall be assessed to their member school districts. And then the transition board is required to take all actions necessary to ensure the supervisory union is able to fully comply with and execute each duty assigned to the supervisory union under 16 VSA 261A, not later than the operational date of the new supervisory union. And then the transition board is required to comply with 16 VSA chapter 53, subchapter 3 for the transition of its employees. Basically, section 5 allows for the transition board to be created and then essentially says in very broad strokes, do everything you got to do to be up and running. You may get feedback that this is not specific enough. And that's great. And I would just encourage you as you're receiving that feedback to then say, well, what should that specific language be? Because I am not in the field and I'm not on these transition boards. So I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage for understanding all of the specific nuances. So I think this is good language to start with, but you may receive feedback that it's not good enough.
Okay, so we had Senator Weeks.
Yeah, just a quick question. Just kind of help me out, put all this in perspective. This language is all about a transition, whether it's to 20 SUs, 5 SUs, or one statewide school district or system, correct? So theoretically, all this homework, this effort is germane regardless of what we do, except for maintaining status quo. That'd be appropriate.
You would say it depends on where you want to end up in that new state. This language makes an assumption that you are not changing any supervisory union duties. And so if you are assuming that, and you're keeping our other governance structure of school districts in place, then I would say the number of supervisory unions may not be germane. Again, it depends on the details, but if you're changing anything about the governance of the governance units, how they are formed or how many there are, or you are changing the supervisory union duties or powers or responsibilities, then you may need different language.
Thank you. Yes.
To me, the most important thing that they would need in the transition is funding and technical assistance.
It's in there.
It's a and it's an appropriation.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yes, there is a whole bunch of grants and appropriations at the very end of the bill.
I was like scanning and didn't see it right away. Great.
So that's it for supervisory unions. Aside from the technical language related to the boundary proposal, boundary adjustment request and the transition piece, the big outstanding policy questions for you here are simply what are the boundaries of your supervisory unions? And I would suggest that you need to include in state law, not just the supervisory unions with multiple member districts, but also every supervisory district.
Supervisor district, yes. Yeah.
So
So
go ahead.
Beth, how would that work? Because in the gray area on the map, the thought had been that we would establish these 11 SUs and then just say to the SDs in that gray area to find a partner and reduce the number by half and do that outside of statutory, but you're thinking
Can do that for the school districts, but I think if you and I'll continue to think about this, but I think if you are creating school districts through an act of the legislature, supervisory unions through an act of the legislature, you have to include all kinds of supervisory unions. And that would include your supervisory districts, because you can't just leave half the state out. Or have I'm struggling to kind of use any savvy legal terms here other than if you want a whole separate process for those school districts, then I think we need to talk about that and how to build that in. But every school district in the state needs to be assigned to a supervisory union because those supervisory unions have specific responsibilities in state law and under federal law. And so if you've only created supervisory unions for half of the state, then there's going to be, I think, natural questions about, well, what do I belong to if I'm not listed here? And so I think the easiest thing to do from a drafting perspective is to just include them. Now that does complicate their ability to voluntarily merge, and what does that do to their supervisory union boundaries? It would take an act of the legislature to change to, if two school districts are getting together and they were supervisory districts, they could merge their school districts voluntarily, but it would take an act of the legislature to create new supervisory unions. Perhaps that's just a complication we have not thought through, but I don't think you can just ignore them.
okay, let's come back to that. Let's put a pin in that one. Because yeah, what I had been thinking about, I understand what you're saying, is I was thinking about them more as districts as opposed to supervisory unions and allowing them to merge the same way that we're allowing districts to merge within that. And I get the complication. I get it. So we just have to think that through.
I think this is why I really do dislike the term supervisory district. when you are a supervisory district, even though it's one board doing all of these things, that you don't have to you don't have to make any differentiation between a supervisory union and the school district. But as long as you have a standalone statute that assigns specific duties to a separate body other than the school district, then I think you need to account for everyone in the state when you're making changes. It could be that you have different processes for different types. I think that is going to require some further policy thought.
Okay. Yes.
So can it be something as simple as a definition? I mean, I've been saying all along, we need to stop talking about supervisory unions if we're gonna make districts. I mean, is it something as simple as, semantics?
I think that's a maybe, depending on your policy objectives. My understanding for this draft is that there was a desire to keep supervisory unions alive. And so I don't think a definition is going to solve the issue of what do you do for supervisory districts that you want to allow to voluntarily merge their school district structures, and then there would need to be an act of the legislature to expand a supervisory union or create a new supervisory union. I don't think a definition is unfortunately going to fix that one.
The reason I'm asking that is because superintendents are associated with supervisory unions. So
Correct.
So let's put a pin in this, except for one more question. I see we'll get to, but let's put a pin in this issue. We need to think it through. So,
Yeah, I mean, I could get in trouble for thinking out loud about this. I'm just gonna acknowledge that.
That's never stopped.
With a different crowd. It, to me, that speaks to the need to potentially draw the districts into supervisory unions as well and say, okay, like, you two are a supervisory union until you can become one district, if that's what you choose to do. But bear with me, because what I'm saying is we probably want similar parameters that get equity, that get more like 2,000 students per supervisory union in those areas, because that's what's good for kids. So we don't, I mean, we already saw people starting to say, like, let us draw ourselves in and out of this for reasons that aren't about kids. And this is the concern I brought up before. Do we need to say, we're telling you, these 2 districts or 3 districts are now going to be a supervisory union, and then let them have that argument with us as well? Like, I'm just really struggling with the idea of, like, we're just telling all of the people here, figure it out.
well, so just going back to the construct.
Yeah.
These SUs are all in the 3,000 to 4,000 range.
Right.
And then it's within that for the districts to have 2 years to merge voluntarily.
But we're not giving them suggested boundaries in the district.
Well, there are districts now, so they would continue in their current form, but
Right.
but then we would be saying merge and get down to less than half of what you are now.
Right.
We'll do it.
But bear with me, what if we gave them the choice more so to become a supervisory union so they could share back-end functions even if all of their school buildings are full? So
These are bigger. I think we want the back end functions will be in these large SUs.
but why not why not
You're
letting
talking
the
gray.
yeah, I'm just
talking
focused on the
gray.
gray area right now.
Okay.
So if we're just in the gray area, and that someone's gonna be yelling at me soon, but if we're just in the gray area, I mean, what Chittenden County has been talking about is we could combine a lot of back-end functions. We're not gonna close a lot of school buildings necessarily, but I think what made me think of this is that Burlington is a school district with a supervisory union overlaid on top of it, right? So So some of the school districts in the gray area, they are also either themselves supervisory unions, or they might be two districts within a supervisory union in the gray area as well. So it wouldn't be out of the question for us to say, you're a bigger governance unit. That doesn't necessarily mean anything's going to change, except you have to shrink your administrative functions and do facilities decisions together. Does that make any sense?
All true. Let's, yeah, go ahead.
And then, the other dimension of this is if we adopted what we're talking about right now, if it was perfected, still have to function. These schools and districts have to function during that transition.
Right. Right,
So which could be major bottleneck.
right.
Our constitution.
The reason that, I'll just use an example, not naming any names in any malicious way. The reason they have South Burlington on an island is because South Burlington pays their teachers more. They would be better off in a supervisory union where they could still make some independent decisions that got cost savings without increasing everyone's costs.
So you're actually suggesting more SUs, larger ones, even for that.
I think it feels more like then we have one system for everybody that's saying, you don't have to be a new school district right away, but you need to be, we're telling you, we suggest this is your supervisory union. And then you can,
You know,
does that make sense?
well, yes, yeah, let's put a pin in this.
Okay,
We're gonna
okay.
get through the rest, because, by the way, just so everybody knows this, if you go to the back of this, it has these are the SBs in the gray area,
Right.
and it lists their student count. So it's helpful to, as you're thinking.
That's exactly, so then I'm thinking,
Yeah.
you could merge two of those and still have like 1,000 students instead of 2,000.
Well, actually, you have most of them, if you look at them, most of them are nearly 2,000,
Right,
or 2,000 or more, I should say.
right.
And some aren't too far from 2,000.
No, I thought that was
So,
instructive, but
Yeah, so
some of the littler ones are real little.
there's a few little ones that
Mhm.
maybe we ought to be thinking of. Okay,
Yeah.
so pin in that.
Okay.
That you're back on.
I'm sorry, I just need one second. I'm home with a sick child, and to prevent a cameo,
Fine,
if
it's
you could
fine.
give me just 1 second.
Right.
Sad. I'm still so perplexed that I like this. But why don't we still make it one supervisory, a unified system, and then break it up to with having administrators or superintendents to take care of
Areas of
each-
responsibility.
yeah, areas of responsibility. And up here, it'll do everything you want to do. But all the paperwork, which is what's going to really be a killer, will be done as we have to shrink down part. And I get that some people just don't like that concept in this building, but from everything I sit here and listen to, that makes the most common sense for our state to do, so that and people still have, schools will still have their say. But just as you draw it out here, hey, this administrative space there, and then up here, it's got to break up. It really.
So what are you, I'm sure you're suggesting one, you're still.
One, but because everything you talk about is saying, okay, this SU and it has one superintendent, well, then we just change the name to administrator, but that's his area or their area that they're responsible to make sure. And then we're all backdoor using, it doesn't matter where in the state, it gives us better buying power. The trick is in teachers, because nobody's going to want to go down. So I understand that part. But other than that, I don't understand why we're not trying to just say that and I haven't yet heard a good argument against that would say, geez, we shouldn't look at this a little harder.
All I can say is that what I was trying to do with this is take a step
Yes,
forward.
yes.
And cut both large units, small units in half, kind of get it down to.
I see what you're doing, but just put in my mind that people.
So, yeah, okay, got it. Put a pin in it.
That's not,
Put some pins in
I
it.
just want to state,
Okay,
put
No,
something on.
So,
okay, Beth,
Yeah.
you're back on for section 6, perhaps?
Yes, so we're on page 10, section 6. Now you'll see there's a new reader assistance heading. So we are out of supervisory unions. We're not talking about SUs anymore. Now we're talking about school districts. So I think this is an area where we're just going to have to kind of go subsection by subsection. So section 6, reduction in number of school districts. The goal here is that on or before July 1, 2029, the state shall provide educational opportunities through 50% fewer school districts than exist on July 1, 2026 through the actions described in this section. So that's the North Star. Subsection B, voluntary mergers. And then there's kind of, there's a couple different groups that different expectations apply to. So the first one, subdivision 1, is supervisory union member district mergers. On or before September 1, 2026, the member school district boards of the following supervisory unions shall establish study committees to study the advisability of forming a new or expanded union school district in any combination that results in the reduction in the number of individual member school districts by 50% across all supervisory unions pursuant to current law in Chapter 11. And then we would list out each of the supervisory unions that applies to. My understanding is that right now, that would be everything other than the gray area, all of those supervisory unions. So, I'm sorry?
It could be the 11 that are identified.
Yep.
Yeah.
So get together, discuss amongst yourselves, but the end result should be a reduction in 50% of supervisory unions. Sorry, of school districts within those 11 supervisory unions. Then on page 11, subdivision 2, other school district mergers. So on or before September 1st, 2026, the boards of all school districts that are not members of the SUs that were included in subdivision 1 shall establish study committees to study the advisability of forming the same thing, new or expanded union school districts in any combination that results in the reduction in the total number of individual school districts by 50% of the total school districts that this subdivision is applicable to. So that's the gray area. And both sets of studies are going to be done according to current law in Chapter 11 in Title 16, the Union School District Formation chapter. And then subdivision 3, there's an exception here. Districts with an average daily membership of more than 3,000 students as of July 1, 2026 shall not be required to merge pursuant to this section. There's nothing stopping them from doing that, but they're not required to.
That was testimony, I believe, we got from somebody in one of the gray areas saying we're already at scale.
Yeah.
And so this is to recognize that you're already at scale. You know, you should let it alone.
And we're defining already at scale as 3,000.
Yeah, which is our arbitrary number. So
No, yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm just,
unless they see a greater efficiency coming.
Yeah, they're welcome to merge always.
right. That's where I think we have to double check that math because, and I don't want to offend anybody, but it might make sense for Winooski to merge with Burlington, even though Burlington's already at scale. So I just want to throw that out there.
Okay. You're thinking, yeah, okay. You're in a way thinking about making sure that you don't end up in a important district.
Yeah.
It needs to merge with somebody and there's somebody to merge with. So put a pin in that. I've been
Yeah.
doing a lot about the urban.
It could be South Burlington when you see,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I just want to make sure we're not forcing them to have conversations that we haven't thought through with this.
Okay. So you're back.
Okay, section 7 on page 11, line 12. Operation model protection. So a lot of this language is taken directly from Act 46. And basically, we'll walk through it, but basically what it is meant to say is nothing in this act would require two school districts to merge and one of them to give up their operational structure in either direction. So on line 13, nothing in this act shall be construed to restrict or repeal or to authorize, encourage, or contemplate the restriction or repeal of the ability of a school district that as of the effective date of this section provides for the education of all resident students in one or more grades. By paying tuition on the student's behalf to continue to provide education by paying tuition, by operating a school offering the grades to continue to provide education by operating those grades. So nothing in this act is meant to restrict or repeal school districts' ability to keep their current operating structure if that is what they want to do. So on page 12, subsection B, school operation, all governance transitions contemplated pursuant to this act shall preserve the ability of a district that as of the effective date of this section provides for the education of all resident students in one or more grades by operating a school for all grades in the greater grades if it chooses to do so, and shall not require the district to pay tuition for students if it ceases to exist as a discrete entity and realigns into a supervisory district or union school district. It's the same thing for tuition in subsection C. All governance transitions contemplated pursuant to this act shall preserve the ability of a district that as of the effective date of this section provides for the education of all resident students in one or more grades by paying tuition on the student's behalf to continue to provide education by paying tuition if the district wants to do so. But then subsection D says, but if you want to get together and you want to change your operating structures voluntarily, by all means, go ahead. So nothing in this section shall prohibit school districts, regardless of their operating structure, from voluntarily merging pursuant to the processes and requirements of Chapter 11.
So this is, in shorthand, that testimony Hancock and Grenville didn't recall, where they talked about how important it was for the kids to build together. This allows them to continue to do that, and not force a merger of an area like that with a merger that is fully operational, or vice versa. To just link with like. Yes.
So just trying to understand the full story. So with these, with the gray area potential mergers, it's the State Board of Education who becomes the adjudicator on the relevance of the proposed SUs. Is that?
Are you asking me or Senator Bongard?
Start with you. I'm gonna have.
I'm sorry, what was the question, Senator Weeks?
So it appears that the School Board of Education becomes the adjudicator of whether the proposed State Board of Education becomes the adjudicator of the proposed voluntary mergers in the gray zone for new SUs.
No, we're just talking about school districts right now. The SU issue in the gray zone and how you adjust those boundaries is an open policy decision.
Okay, I thought that okay, I'm with you.
Okay. So evaluation by the State Board of Education under current law. So what the school district, everything under the school district merger reader assistance heading, the sections that we are discussing right now, is relying on current law, the process in Chapter 11 for the formation of a union school district to guide the process for these voluntary mergers. So, and under that process, the state board is required to approve a school district merger. So when evaluating, so I'm in section 8, when evaluating a proposal to create a union school district, including a proposal submitted pursuant to the provisions of section 6 of this act, which is everything we just walked through related to the reduction in number of school districts by 50% in the different areas, the 11 SUs and then the gray area. So when the state board is looking at those proposals that are submitted to them under current law, the state board has to consider whether the proposal is designed to meet the goals set forth in section 1 of this act and to reduce the number of school districts as set forth in section 6. And be mindful of any district in the region that may become geographically isolated, including the potential isolation of a district with low fiscal capacity or with a high percentage of students from economically deprived backgrounds. This is language taken directly from Act 46. At the request of the State Board of Education, the Secretary shall work with the potentially isolated district and other districts in the region to move toward a voluntary merger that does not result in such isolation. And then the State Board is authorized to deny approval to a proposal that would geographically isolate a district that would not be an appropriate member of another governance structure in the region, provided, however, that notwithstanding 16 VSA 709 subdivision C2, and I'll go over that in a second, the State Board shall approve other mergers formed pursuant to this act that do not geographically isolate a district. So basically what this is saying is under current law, State Board has to approve school district mergers. This act is saying, State Board, you are authorized to deny that approval if the new school district would leave someone geographically isolated. But if it's not going to leave someone geographically isolated, then you have to approve the merger, notwithstanding the findings that they are required to make under current law. And I'll tell you what those findings are. So under current law, subdivision C2 of section 709, the State Board is required, if the State Board finds that the formation of the proposed union school district is in the best interest of the state, the students, and the school districts, and aligns with the policy set forth in section 701 of Title 16, then it's required to approve the merger. And so this language is saying, if there's a school district if school districts are merging to form a new school district pursuant to this act, then the State Board does not need to make those findings. It just has to approve the merger so long as it doesn't leave someone geographically isolated.
The idea is if you want to merge, you can merge.
So section 9, on or before November 30th, 2027, the board of each school district in the state that is not a member of a newly formed school district or that does not expect to become a member of a newly formed school district on or before July 1, 2029, either on its own behalf or jointly with the boards of other similarly situated school districts, has to submit a proposal to the Secretary of Education and the State Board of Education in which the district proposes to retain its current governance structure, to work with other districts to form a different governance structure, or to enter into a model of joint activity, demonstrates through reference to enrollment projections, student to staff ratios, comprehensive data collected pursuant to EQS and otherwise, how the proposal submitted pursuant to this section supports the districts or the single districts or the joint districts' ability to meet or exceed the goals as set forth in section 1 of this act, and identifies detailed actions it proposes to take to continue to improve its performance in connection with each of the goals set forth in section 1 of this act. So if you're not going to merge, you have to submit a proposal of how you're still going to meet those goals in Act 1 according to these parameters. And again, it's a very similar process as to what was required under Act 46. I'm on page 14, section 10, final state action. So we're going to start with the Agency of Education making a proposal. So in order to modernize Vermont's school district governance structures and meet the goals set forth in section 1 of this act while reducing the number of school districts by 50%, the Secretary is required to review the governance structures of the school districts and SUs of the state as they will exist or are anticipated to exist on July 1, 2029. The review is required to consider any proposals submitted by districts or groups of districts pursuant to Section 6 of this Act and conversations with those in other districts. And then on or before June 1st, 2028, the secretary is required to develop and publish and present to the state board their plan that would, to the extent necessary, promotes the purpose stated at the beginning of this subsection, would merge districts into larger school districts in an effort to reduce the number of school districts by 50% to not more than 56 total school districts. The agency shall only recommend merging districts with the same operating structures. If it is not possible or practicable to develop a proposal that realigns some districts where necessary in a manner that adheres with the protections of Section 7 of this Act, which is the protection for tuition paying and operating districts, then the proposal may allow some school districts not to merge and instead to continue to exist as they operate as of July 1, 2026.
So this could theoretically, this whole section could never come into use if enough districts merge voluntarily in the first instance before the deadline.
I don't think so, because you're asking the state board to come up with a plan in light of the current governance structure. So I think the plan could be you don't need to do anything. The proposal could be you don't need to do anything. But I think you would still, this language would still ask the secretary to do that review of the landscape.
But it wouldn't be, but I thought this was just to come into being if we didn't get to the 50% voluntarily, then the board stepping in to make it happen with a few districts that still needed to merge to get there.
Yes, there's language later on saying that the state board cannot merge districts that merged voluntarily.
Okay.
According to this act. And this is a policy choice on your point, but who is doing the review of the governance structures to determine that those goals have been met? I think you still want the secretary, you want someone to take a look at everyone and determine whether that goal has been met. And if not, what is the proposal?
So whether the 50% has been met.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, Senator Weeds.
So I was tracking with you guys up to this point. Now I've lost the ball. 11 SUs are already affected with their governance units. They become more efficient, leadership and business areas, geographic areas, right? The gray section is to be determined. Hopefully they're negotiating amongst themselves. So I don't understand where the 56 total school districts becomes the target.
Okay, it's a combination of I think it's 97 districts within the 11 SUs.
So why does that matter?
Because they have, within these SUs, the districts have to merge. The SUs are saying,
Why?
because we want to reduce the number of districts by half.
What does that matter?
The foundation formula tends to work better in larger districts. So,
But is it about the district or is it about the SU? Are we more
about the district, there's two things going on. We're reducing the number of SU from 52 to a total of between these 11 and these of about something like 23.
Okay.
And then we're reducing the total number of districts from 119 to 56.
but the districts report up to the SU level?
Yes.
So there's a board of the school board at the larger SU level.
Yes.
Who cares how many districts report up? And to the point, if you have small hamlets here and there that have their own school district, who cares if they're still small, but they're reporting up to a larger school district, excuse me, a larger school board in a SU? Who cares what the number of, what relevance does the number of districts have anymore, except they retain their small, kind of very focused local view, but whether there's 119 or 56 or some other oscillating number, what does it really matter?
Well, these SUs, remember these 11 SUs, they only form, they're not a board per se. They are a board, but
They would
they're
have
not a school board.
when
have a
they,
board, but they don't run the schools. They do some of the back, they do the hiring, they do the financials, they provide special and oversee special ed. But the boards continue to operate the way they do right now. But the problem is, as it relates to trying to bring the foundation formula into being, the foundation formula doesn't work as well with little tiny districts. And so we're trying to move the district, get them smaller districts to merge, because the dollars flow to the districts, not to the SU.
okay, I thought the whole concept of what we're trying to do here is that superintendent at an SU level is responsible for management of all the schools in their regional zone.
No, they're not responsible per se. They're not, just the way they are right now. This doesn't change the way SUs operate and districts operate. It only tries to make them fewer of them. So districts run their schools right now, and they will continue to run their schools. What we're saying, especially the smaller districts, is get your scale up a little bit. Because the dollars coming into the foundation formula, remember that it's a per pupil allocation. And it works, the larger we can get the districts to be within these SUs, the better the dollars work within
Okay,
this.
so at an SU level, there's no board.
There is a board, but it's made up of members of the districts. It's not elected. It's only made up of, like, let's just say board chairs. And they perform, it's kind of back office. So. Good. So yeah, this is not the most radical plan here. It's really just to reduce the number of districts they have to make the board better for the foundation formula coming into being.
Is there a way we can get some sort of scale analysis from joint fiscal regarding this 50%? Because, you know, my question is why isn't 45% the sweet spot for 55%? You know, where is 50% the placeholder? And are we going to try getting more into the specifics as to what a good percentage would be that would yield the most savings without sacrificing efficiency and providing?
In a way, I think your question really is, what's the student count in a district that makes the foundation formula work best? Is it 1,000?
Yeah.
Is it 750? Is it 1,500? Because that's what we're trying, I think, what we're trying to get to is to scale up the districts. But what I was trying to do here is let them do it organically, not have it be too draconian, and have them pick a partner that's going to make the most sense for them, the way they operate, the way they are for other reasons, you know, next to each other or whatever. So what's not in here is something that says the ideal district is X size, you know. And I think that might be because I think the student count is the most relevant factor.
Also, I mean,
And we could do a little playing around with that.
They have to get above 2,000 students or
Or
something.
even some of these districts are really quite small, and you would try to get those that can to get to some of it.
so is it a percentage that we're going to be looking for to reduce, or is it a student size that we are looking to merge into scale?
That's a question. That's a legitimate question.
That's the track I'm on all day.
I was just trying to get the train moving down the track with some voluntary mergers that would, at least by definition, improve it from what it is. And I was trying not to get too specific about who people had to merge with, because then you get into complications and it becomes more top down. So. But that's a totally legitimate line of thought.
I was curious.
I think, again, if you're saying we're kind of drawing this boundary around you to get more of the scale, but you don't have one district right away, that might be a better way to achieve scale without just sort of worrying about cutting in half the number of districts.
Trying to leave as much flexibility as I could. Move the
Yeah.
train down the track. That's what I was trying to do. So, if you're back, if you're not, it's okay. Okay.
I'm here.
Okay.
You have me for another 7 minutes.
Okay.
Where would you like me to focus?
Wherever we left off, let's just try to finish the section.
Okay,
We're somewhere
So
on page 15, I think, right?
we're on page 15, line 16. So this is the criteria that the agency is supposed to be considering in any mergers that they propose. Only
Yeah.
school, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, just as people are thinking about this, as you're about to go through it, I was thinking a little bit more of this, rather than shall meet the following criteria, shall consider. But we could, that's another discussion for us to have, but, so go ahead though.
Sure. So let's just, I guess, then talk about the criteria. So school districts with small student counts. School districts don't need to be contiguous, but they need to, the geography needs to make sense, both for the school district that's being merged and anyone else around them that would be affected by that merger. So, like non-contiguous districts cutting off other districts. Whether there's adequate infrastructure capacity to consolidate schools, whether a merger would lead to improved opportunity for resident students, and whether mergers would lead to the potential to gain staffing and administrative efficiencies. And then on or before November 30th, 2028, the state board is required to review the agency's proposal, take testimony. This is all modeled after Act 46. So take testimony, and then issue a final statewide plan, merging and realigning districts according to the criteria that we've already talked about. And then again, on line 16 here, the board is prohibited from merging school districts whose operating structures differ as of July 1, 2026. And then subdivision 2 requires the state board to submit a written report to the House and Senate Committees on Education with any recommended boundary proposal changes that they think would be helpful to operationalize any mergers that the state board has ordered. So I see this as kind of an assist to you all of, here's our final plan, and you may want to think about realigning these boundaries for supervisory unions. Here's some recommendations. The state board's plan does not, and the agency's proposal does not apply to interstate school districts, regional CTE centers formed under Chapter 37, Subchapter 5A, or a school district that between July 1, 26 and July 1, 28 began to operate as a unified union school district, or at least obtained the affirmative vote of all necessary districts to form that new union school district pursuant to Section 6 of this Act. Provided, however, that as part of the state board's plan developed pursuant to subsection B, the state may realign a newly formed union school district to include a geographically isolated district where necessary to achieve the goals of this act. So the state board is prohibited from further merging districts that voluntarily merged pursuant to this act, but they are empowered to add geographically isolated districts to a voluntarily merged district if that's what makes sense.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, I mean, so I just want to poke at the first two non-applicable scenarios to make sure I still understand how they'd be impacted by this. So number one, an interstate school district would still fall under the foundation formula if everyone else falls under the foundation formula.
I don't know how that works actually, because of so how does that work with an interstate district? In, like the one that's with New Hampshire, the couple we have with New Hampshire.
I would suggest that you have John in to talk about that, but the foundation formula is going to apply to them, like
Okay.
in the most broadest sense.
Right. Right. Okay. So, I mean, I just, in that scenario, I wouldn't want them to feel like they can't be some part of the conversation if they fall under the foundation formula. And now that means they need to think about what size they are. I mean, I just don't know how big, I don't know anything about them. With the CTEs, I think, you know, I just always want to make sure they're not such an afterthought, that we're not thinking about ways they could benefit from being part of these supervisory unions, like us saying potentially they're going to be part of the discussion to become a part of the supervisory union. So there is more regional coordination and less funding fighting.
Yeah, they're probably better off with the larger SUs than they are right now, that future construct.
Right.
So, and I was just thinking about Senator Schumer's question about what do we gain by merging? It's always the top 16. The mergers shall lead to improved opportunity for resident students and lead to potential gain staffing and administrative efficiencies. That also goes to your question, even within the with the SDs merging. I'm sorry, with the districts merging within the SUs. You have the potential, and hopefully they will merge because they can gain those things, those objectives.
For lines, maybe for lines 3 to 4, actually on page 16. I don't know if I'm not reading this clearly, but so it says only school districts with adequate infrastructure capacity to consolidate schools, should such a need develop, shall be merged. Are there those? Should there be commas somewhere there? Or
I think I would encourage you to not focus on that, because it sounds like there's going to be further direction to me on how these criteria fit into the overall plan.
fair enough. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding.
Okay, so Beth, I know you have to go. Thank you. We'll find a time with Daphne to pick up where we left off. And we'll keep going. And we have our next part of this, actually Rick's here. Why don't we take a 5-minute break? Thanks, Beth. So let's go, stay live, but
Yeah, it's a challenge.
We are off mute. Yeah, we are back after a
Regular hearings.
quick break. I don't order business today. It's to take up for review a new draft of S 227 and relating to creating immigration protocols in foreign schools. Well, maybe because Jill may not be here yet because.
Oh, great stuff. Just FYI, it's Jill Martin Diaz, not Jill Diaz Martin. And Jill uses they them pronouns.
Okay.
You told us.
They.
I'm not used to this.
We are.
So I wonder if if they are going to want to,
Just say Jill.
Jill is
Yeah,
going to want to hear this for presentation, that we should wait.
Just send them an email.
Okay. Has Jill seen this draft?
So, Rick Sagel, Office of Legislative Counsel, I did copy her on, I think I copied her. Beth. Yeah, copy Jill.
Okay.
Draft. But no guarantee that they saw it.
If people are okay, why don't we just wait the 5 minutes?
Mhm.
And just so that Jill can hear it, that's the whole thing. So if we can go back on mute until 3. it's 3 o'clock. We're back for S227. We have a new draft and we have legislative council here with us. So, we'll walk us through it.
And once again, for the record, Rick Sable with the Office of Legislative Counsel, and you should have draft 2.1 S227. I can share my screen as well. If the committee would
No, we have it.
you have it? Okay, very good.
Our copies.
So the changes are highlighted in yellow from the last draft. And I'll go through those chronologically as the bill progresses and kind of explain why the change was made. There is one change that's not yellow on page 2 because it was a deletion, so there's nothing to highlight. On page 2, the definition of non-public area of a school, you may recall that the last version of the bill had it defined as an area of a school that, I get the exact wording correctly here, during a school day or school-sponsored activity. And it was my understanding that the committee didn't want to restrict it to those two things. So now it is just an area of a school that normally requires authorization by the school to enter and includes an area that school differs not public. So again, no additions, just removing that during a school day or school sponsored activity. Okay, on page 3.
But going back to page 1, I thought we had some conversation, but correct me if I missed something along the way, that on line 17 and 19, we were going to change immigration to law enforcement.
I may recall you bring that up. I'm not sure if the committee wanted that. I think the issue, if you do want to move in that direction, is that this does involve things besides law enforcement. So my concern would be that would be.
Well, it's more that we didn't want to just focus on immigration. It's the reverse of it. So this didn't want this to appear as just an immigration, one issue type bill.
Oh.
Anyway, that was the point.
Yeah.
I didn't make it at the time. I just noted it. This is like the second or third iteration. So it remains I don't know if it's important. Somebody mentioned it. It's not.
Yeah. My advice would be it needs to be accurate, and you have the chapter title, including immigration, and you have the section title. So if you changed
But they're
both of
both
those,
new.
what's that?
They're both new, right?
No.
So we added those.
Well, it's in the introduced version, right? It's not new. It's
Right.
new language, right?
New language
Right.
on top of the old.
Right. So law enforcement would apply to a couple parts of the bill, but it would not be, in my view, a good way to read what's in the section. But again, it's a policy choice. I would just say it would be a bad policy choice to do that, just because it's not accurately depicting what's in the section.
I think, but also if this bill was about all of law enforcement, we'd have had to take more weeks of testimony. Like, this is not limited to one law enforcement agency, but it is limited to how immigration is handled on school campuses.
But yeah, I'll drop.
Okay, on page 3, the subdivision 3, this is a little bit of new language, but mostly previously this language was in a different subsection, the guardian, let me make sure I get the exact word correctly. It was guardian detainment. So the suggestion from the Vermont, the SBA was to kind of include this within the immigration resources. So a superintendent shall foster, to the greatest extent possible, a relationship with a legal or immigration advocacy institution that will provide assistance to a student with regard to immigration-related concerns, including a situation where a guardian of the student has been detained by immigration authorities while the student is in school. So the previous language again was provide assistance to a student in the event that the guardian. So this expands the relationship with that institution that they provide assistance to a student with kind of generally immigration-related concerns, including that specific situation that the previous version of the bill referenced, which was a guardian having been detained by immigration authorities. Okay, on subsection C, student records, This was my change. The previous version had the term legal pupil, and I didn't feel like it met the rest of the bill, so replacing legal pupil with a student, in my opinion, makes the bill just more consistent in its language usage. And that's been replaced in C, line 9, on 12 of the student, and 15, again, the student. Okay, on page 5, this is new language, again proposed by BSBA. So this is the subsection dealing with law enforcement on site, specific to law enforcement on an immigration related matter. So I think the concern was that how are schools going to enact procedures that, you know, basically effectuate these policies. So 6 says that on or before January 1, 2027, AOE, in consultation with the Vermont Superintendents Association, shall develop and review at least annually model administrative procedures to help schools execute the policies set forth in this subsection. And this subsection is just that law enforcement on site, when they appear, the superintendent, if you recall, or their designee, has to make sure that they have a warrant to enter the school on an immigration related matter. On page 6, the policy required, this was previously subsection B in the last version of the bill. And the understanding was that policy requirement, and later on in the bill requiring schools to adopt a policy and a model policy was kind of duplicative. So what we've got here is move the policy required to subsection G. And one, the model policy, which was in the last bill, on or before Jan 1, 2027, on page 6, at the top of page 6. AOE in consultation with the AG's office, the Vermont Independent School Association, and the Vermont School Boards Association shall develop and review at least annually a model policy that reflects the requirements set forth in this section. So the entire section, all of the immigration protocols would be contained in the model policy developed by AOE. Subdivision 2 is language from the last version that has the adoption of the policy, basically that you shall adopt a policy either on your own or use the model policy that AOE is going to create. Page 7, the Immigration Resource Guide. New language added to this guide on line 4 through 8. The guide shall include immigration and civil rights related resources, information regarding standby guardianship pursuant to 14 BSA 2626A, and a list of immigration, human rights, and relevant advocacy organizations available to provide immigration assistance to students and staff. This is that guide that superintendents must distribute to their schools. No other changes to that section or the effective date.
Question.
Yes.
On, did we check with the Vermont Independent Schools and the Vermont School Boards Association to see that they'll be able to meet this timeline?
No, if the other schools can do it, they can do it.
Well, it's just to give a rough draft of policy, correct?
The model policy, it's AOE.
For the other schools. Yeah, I know AOE, but we didn't check with the others to see if they thought the timeline. I believe they can fit it, but I don't believe we ever asked. We're just gonna mandate that they do it without
Well, so
at least passing by.
the agency that will do it,
Right,
and all they do is consult with these organizations. So I think it's okay.
okay.
You know. Jill, did you have any comments?
Hi, for the record, Jill Martin Diaz from Vermont Asylum Assistance Project. Thank you for the opportunity to rejoin the conversation today and be a resource. I've had a chance to look at the new bill language. I see how the conversations evolved since I was last here before the committee, and I think that the structures that this version puts in place seem to be appropriately inclusive of the variety of different types of scenarios in which a young person might find themselves in contact with the immigration legal system and in need of support. So I think that this looks great. I have no concerns to raise with the committee at this time, but I'm happy to answer any specific questions.
Any questions? We didn't warn this for a potential growth, but why don't we? So therefore, I think to be fair, we should probably put it on. We have to.
No, we don't, we definitely don't have to. Calvin Solutions once upon a time, you have to warn a vote. But I would say we've had it on our calendar. Vermont School Boards Association reached out to be helpful, a draft with us. I have not heard anybody who wanted to speak who hasn't been given that opportunity to speak on it.
By the way, School Boards Associations, any comments?
Unless you have questions of why we do what we did, but I think first did a good job thinking it through it.
So you all kind of work together on this, right? Yeah.
Oh, one loose thread. Okay. Julio Thompson said something that I wasn't paying close enough attention, but I don't know if the AG's office wants to be the main guidance source. Is that okay? Okay. Well, now I'm
Section 3,
section 3.
the guide. Immigration guide.
Yeah. They said, you know what? He said, I have some concerns, but I'm not too concerned because we can address it in the House if we don't get an answer in time about whether or not they feel comfortable being a lead communicator with superintendent.
Oh, where are we? Where is that?
Section 3.
Page 7.
Okay.
Because it broke down on page 2 in subsection B. That's the guide that the AG's office creates and they distribute to superintendents. That's been in the bill. So
I flagged it at one point and I texted Julio and I forgot that he got back to me and said, we might want it to be AOE with us consulted, but we're okay with it moving. And if we feel like we have an issue, we can bring it up in the House. Honestly, they're good.
Is everybody feeling comfortable? Good. Okay. Well, that's Mr. Clerk.
Thank you. Senator Hershey,
We technically have to make a motion, vote it out positively.
Yeah, before it's done. Good, yeah.
So.
okay.
It's parliamentary.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, we did. Yeah. Good.
Senator Hudson,
Yes, I don't like some of the language, but I'll want to okay.
Senator Ron Vincent.
Yes.
Senator Weeks, yes. Senator Williams, yes. Senator Bonder.
Yes.
Right.
Now, who would like to report it? Any volunteers?
Yeah. Just be you.
Okay. I was waiting to see if I were to take it.
I can.
But he does all the judicial, it seems, so.
That's true. That's true. Okay. I can do it.
If you're busy, I'm happy to do it.
We're just filling it out.
Perfect.
Here, you can.
Okay. Just back me up when someone needs to
Let's
do
do a quick
legal.
copy. Let's do a quick copy.
Like bring down the legal hammer.
I'll copy on this and copy it.
Yes, clean copy and like a editable copy, because that's what I use.
So Word doc, sure.
That's what I need. Thank you.
If
If you feel like.
Yeah.
Accurately to create
More section.
that something.
We're all, I figured, you have a school in your district that had a very.
yeah,
That's
I don't
true.
know the.
That's
the-
true.
Yeah, right there on the agenda.
Happy to click on it.
Thank you. You're
Yep.
right.
Maybe you can write the section summary.
I want to.
So maybe you can write the section summary.
Yeah.
You know, the board, you still need to get the conversation. Okay, if you want, do you want me to get up somewhere for you all or? I think that's first of all getting an email, so we don't.
Yeah, I mean, no, I didn't,
Oh.
looking forward to you.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, right now, do something right now. Should I sign it right now? So I don't. Yeah, if we have a clear copy of paper.
It's in a PDF file, so just,
Thank you.
open up the box.
Yeah.
Okay. AOT.
HQ transportation.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
DOT and federal. I am. This printer.
Thank you. You need a copy of that?
All right.
You don't need a copy of that.
I do, I don't know. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna send it the copy around. Okay, I will pick it up.
That's,
Thanks, Melissa.
Yep, I'll be right back. Yes, don't let me walk away without. Okay.
are you gonna make that copy?
Yeah, it's okay.
Could you go after the?
Yeah, I'm just, it's gonna must have copy.
So I think we are actually adjourned.
Okay.
I'll excuse myself.